Berserker is one of the best early starter class I recommend. It has great damage, stagger, and destruction with decent tankiness to take on hits. The unique playstyle Mayhem Berserker build is the most used build in the current meta, but the other build is also balanced and perform really well. Let's quickly focus on the skills Berserkers utilize at the endgame. So both builds, Mayhem and Berserker's technique, uses about the same skills. Let's go over one by one. Red Dust. Great self-buff skill that can also be a party synergy. It causes an additional 30% damage taken debuff, and also gives a crit boost of 33.2 at the second tripod at max level. The third tripod is split between users who want to change the debuff into 12% to yourself and the party, or take the original 30% with increased skill damage for yourself. The choice is actually yours. Finish Strike. Main DPS skill, very strong 2-hit with great destruction. Hellblade. Very strong main DPS skill. Mayhem Berserker tend to use a different tripod. It gives additional damage when your HP is lower than 50%. Since your HP is capped at 25% with Mayhem Engravement, this buff is 100% on all the time. Strike Wave. Main DPS skill, also very strong, but it is quite slow, so make sure you take your time aiming at the right moment. Tempest Slash. Main DPS skill. Quick and strong attack that also has great destruction and decent stagger. Sword Storm. Main DPS skill for Mayhem Berserker only. The third tripod provides additional damage when your HP is below 50%. Same effect as Hellblade. You also have 3 to 2 to take optional utility or sub DPS skills. Let's go over them. Chainsword. Your main counter skill. Also has a decent 27.6% crit rate buff. Shoulder Charge. Quick movement skill that can be used twice with a tripod. Windblade. Another movement skill with great gauge gain tripod. Great pick for Berserker's technique build. Mountain Crush. Gauge gainer skill also, and a 30% attack speed buff. Great pick for Berserker's technique build. Maelstrom. Another gauge gainer skill for Berserker's technique build. It also provides crit rate buff of 38.8%. Crime Hazard. Sub DPS skill. Great additional sub DPS skill for both Mayhem and Berserker's technique build. Hillwind. Sub DPS skill, great on Chaos Dungeons. Power Break. Sub DPS skill. And for your awakenings, you have Berserker Fury. And you have Chain Vengeance. Let's talk about playstyles a little bit. I will go over Berserker's technique first. Your goal is to go on Berserk mode, and skills like Mountain Crush and Windblade will help you. With a higher tripod and rituals, it will also help. And stats like Specialization help you gain much more meter and your transformation time much longer. While you're in battle, make sure you utilize Red Dust and Chainsword or Mountain Crush to make sure that you have your self buff. Mountain Crush enables extra attack speed. Your Red Dust gives extra damage plus extra crit rate. So I use Red Dust here, Mountain Crush, and then I use Hellblade. The Hellblade is much stronger because you have your self buffs ready to go. And when they're on cooldown, you can use Chainsword and use the next set of DPS skills because it has a higher crit rate. Now your Mountain Crush is back. Use Mountain Crush, you can use Finishing Strike. And use your Chainsword again to use Tempest Slash. And when your Red Dust is back, you can use your Red Dust again with a Mountain Crush and then use your main DPS skill. So you have to wait a little bit. You have to manage your cooldowns really, really well so that all the skills are used efficiently. You'll eventually be able to go to Berserk mode and be able to use this identity skill called Blood Rush. Identity skill does massive damage on Berserker's technique build because you go high specialization, and specialization impacts Blood Rush's damage. You definitely need to make sure this skill is used after your Red Dust. Why? Because Red Dust gives additional damage and additional crit rate. So if I transform here, you notice I have extra movement speed, extra attack speed, and my crit rate is increased by 30%. If I use Red Dust on top of this, that's 63%. Including my crit stat, that would be almost 70-ish. Therefore, if I want to use my Blood Rush, I would need to make sure my Red Dust or my Chainsword is ready, but it's preferably Red Dust. So I use my Red Dust here, Mountain Crush, and then you use my Blood Rush. This is a lot of damage. Here's one thing. When you have Transform, you do your cycles again. For example, Mountain Crush, Hellblade, Chainsword, and then use your DPS skills. And you can use Tempest Slash on the middle, Mountain Crush again, Finish Strike. Now you need to make sure that, oh, my Red Dust is back. Should I use it or not? In this case, when you're transformed, you should not use your Red Dust immediately because you will need to use it with your Bloody Rush. So when my Bloody Rush is back, I will need to use the Red Dust again, Mountain Strike, and then use Bloody Rush. So to continue, while you're transformed, you will need to make sure you use your Bloody Rush on every cooldown, but at the same time your Red Dust needs to be ready. So you need to save your cooldowns, you need to plan your cooldowns ahead of time so that you can land efficient DPS while you're in a battle. And as for Awakening, make sure your Red Dust and your Mountain Crush is there as well. Red Dust, Mountain Crush, and your Awakening. And that pretty much covers the Berserker's technique. It's pretty easy, and the only hard part is managing your cooldowns and making sure you don't get hit while you're doing your attacks, because you don't have that many movement skills unless you have shoulder charge. Now let's talk about Mayhem Berserker. Mayhem Berserker operates a little bit differently. You get a limited gauge and you can transform indefinitely. Your Bloody Rush is changed to Dark Rush, but it doesn't do as much damage because you don't go specialization in this build. And as for your skills, make sure your Hellblade tripod is different, because in this case it says it will do more damage when your HP is under 50%. Your HP is under 50% the whole time, so it's good to use this. And as for Swordstorm as well, this particular tripod gives additional damage when you're under 50% HP, so you use this as well. So unlike Berserker's technique, your Mayhem buff doesn't give the crit rate. So you increase your crit rate on combat stat, and then since you have additional swiftness on the combat stat, you will move much faster overall. So since all your skills will be in much faster cooldown, the playstyle is about the same. Your goal is to land your Red Dust and then fit 3 of your main DPS skills in, so that in 6 seconds you do the maximum amount of damage. And the skill combinations are Red Dust, your Strike Wave, your Sword Storm, and Finish Strike. So here, I'll do Red Dust, Strike Wave, Sword Storm, and Finish Strike. In exact 6 seconds, I will fit all my skills in. And while you're done with that, you'll do Chainsword, and then you do Hellblade to fit your skill in. And then you can fit on Tempest Slash in the middle. And while your Red Dust comes back, all your main skills will be coming back as well. And you can just use them in any combination. Like so. So if I go for the combination again, Red Dust, Strike Wave, Sword Storm, and Finish Strike. My buff is gone. Chainsword, Hellblade. Walk around. And then I can use my Tempest Slash on the side or my Dark Rush on the side as well. It will land a lot of crits. You can move around. And you can Chainsword as a counter, as an extra. When your Red Dust is back, your Red Dust, Finish Strike, Tempest Strike, and Sword Storm. And fit on the much as damage you can. Then you lose your Chainsword, and then you can use your Strike Wave as well. Since the Mayhem Berserker has a shorter cooldown, you need to make sure what kind of skills are going to be fit on your Red Dust. Your Hellblade's cast time is too long. So most of the time, when your Red Dust is there, you make sure you cast on your shorter skills so that you can land most of your skills in. And since Mayhem Berserker moves a lot faster, if you don't really need a shoulder charge, you can add another DPS skill in. For example, you can add in Crime Hazard. So when you're finished with the Red Dust, Strike Wave, Sword Storm, and Finish Strike, and then you can add in another skill, Crime Hazard on, Chainsword, and then Hellblade. And then you go around, you can use your Tempest Slash, Crime Hazard for another extra DPS, and then you can use your Dark Rush. And by the time your Red Dust is coming back, I can keep moving around. Red Dust again, Finish Strike, Sword Storm, Tempest Slash, and so on and so forth. Most of the newbie berserkers make a mistake on, they try to spam all the skills and their combinations are messed up. So you have to make sure Red Dust first, and then you land your DPS, as many DPS skills as you can to be efficient. And while you're doing that, you can't be greedy as well. If you land your Red Dust while you're trying to put in all your skills in, sometimes they get hit. So you have to be not greedy on, taking all the hits and stuff. This guy is standing still, so he's obviously going to take all the hits. But sometimes when you land your Red Dust, the raid boss is going to move around, so you won't be able to land all the hits. So you have to make sure that you manage your cooldowns and you manage your skills, so that, let's say the boss is staggered, you have a big window time open, you have those skills ready to go to make sure to land in as much damage as possible. So this concludes the video on Berserker's playstyle. The details like the engramming, all that stuff, I think it'll be better in another time. And I think it's important for you to understand the playstyle first so that you can choose the character and then you expect what you expect for it. Yeah, so I hope you guys are having fun at Lostark, and if you guys have any additional questions, just leave a comment or feel free to visit my stream to see the actual character in action, or some other classes if you guys want to see. So great, thank you guys, bye.